don't know about you, but I've been having a ton of conversations about artificial intelligence lately. The good, the bad, and the scary. Hey, my name is Werner Puchert, and I believe that most of the world's problems are just interesting design challenges in disguise. And when it comes to artificial intelligence, I would be remiss to say that I am actually very excited about it. However, I do believe that I have a responsibility for myself and the teams that I lead that I have to do no harm. I think we're all facing a little bit of a challenge. This is such new ground that it's really hard to find guidelines and kind of best practices out there. And I set myself a challenge to go out and see if I can find any tools and methodologies that could help build better products, specifically around artificial intelligence. And I'm happy to say that I've found a couple. And in this video, I want to offer you one of these solutions that I've found. So if you want to explore the ethical use of artificial intelligence, Microsoft has got a game called Judgement Call that you can use with your team to explore the ethical principles that you've set in place for yourself and your team. However, that being said, we might not all have ethical principles in place, specifically when it comes to artificial intelligence. Therefore, this game is built around Microsoft's 6 ethical principles, and you'll see in the gameplay that you can tweak these, use them, or replace them with your own ethical principles. However, I think for interest, let me just quickly go through these ethical principles because they form the foundation of Judgement Call. So, according to Microsoft, they build products and services incorporating artificial intelligence that adhere to these 6 ethical principles. Inclusion, making sure that everybody can use the product or service. Reliability, making sure it's online and available. Fairness, making sure that there's no bias. Accountability, making sure that the algorithm is ethically accountable. Transparency, making sure that people are clear with what's going on. And of course, lastly, but very importantly, privacy and security. So as I mentioned, these are the concepts or ethical principles that you'll be using to explore your product and service, but you can add more, tweak, or remove as you go into the gameplay. So enough about that, let's get into the goodies. So this game is designed for 1 to 10 players. It talks a lot about product people, so product teams, but I would recommend that you give this a bash even if you do some work with business folks, maybe exploring a product or ethics with customers. I think this could still do a great job. If you head over to the Microsoft website, check the link below. You can go and download all these elements for free. So the first element that I want to show you or talk about is the instruction sheet. It has the ethical principles here with a bit of a description, but most importantly here, the full gameplay step-by-step that you can go through when you're a moderator of one of these rounds. Then over to the cards, and they are divided into 3 categories. Now the first category here is marked as ethical principles. You have all 6 of Microsoft's artificial intelligence ethical principles here that I mentioned earlier, or you can, like we did here, add your own. I would recommend though, if you're like me, is just pop your additional element, and you'll see them on the other cards here on the sticky note, stick it to the card deck, and then you can add your own ethical principles in the additional cards that are available. The second element that you need to focus on for this game is the cards here marked as stakeholders. So of course, the idea is that you want to write a product review of your future or current product from the perspective of a stakeholder. So for that, you need to determine who's the actual users or stakeholders that are going to use the product or be affected by this product. You have some cards here. You'll see that we filled out some. This was for our demo play. These are empty cards, so you can go out and sit with your team, explore direct, indirect stakeholders, have a video about that, and add them on these cards. And then finally, because I did kind of allude to how the game works, is that you have to go out and then write a product review out of the perspective of one of your stakeholders. And therefore, you have a set of cards here that represent the star rating of said product review. So you have 4 cards here that represent 5 stars, 4 cards here that represent 3 stars, and then at the end, 1 star. So I think you're starting to get the gist of the gameplay. Okay, so the objective of the gameplay is to go out and write reviews of the product and service that you're planning to create from the perspective of the people who are going to be using it, so stakeholders. However, the main idea here is to see if you can spark debate amongst your team members to see how this product or service aligns with your ethical principles, to see if there's any potential harm or risks that you're facing with your solution. What you want to do at the beginning is set down a moderator, someone who's going to be actually managing the gameplay, and then very importantly, set out a product or service that you want to explore. Important to mention here is that you want to go out identify the technology. So in our case, we looked at artificial intelligence specifically related to personal learning pathways within schools. So how can artificial intelligence be used to create specific curriculums for students? So what you've heard there is that I identified a technology, but then also identified an application. Very important as you go into the gameplay, because you want to narrow it down slightly. Then the next step is to go out, as I mentioned with the cards here, with the stakeholder cards, is list out as many stakeholders, direct, indirect as possible, and then mapping them out on your stakeholder cards. Second thing you want to do is review the ethical principles, and potentially, as we did in our example, add an additional ethical principles that you might want to put in place. Okay, so let's play a quick round. Each player needs to draw one card from each of the three categories, ending up with an ethical principle, a stakeholder card, and then a randomly drawn rating card. Next thing, each player gets an index card, and then they each need to spend some time to write a review based on the stakeholder card that they've drawn. So they have to look at the technology and application of the technology through the eyes of the stakeholder that they've drawn. Further, they have to look at this product or service through the ethical lens of the ethical principle that I've drawn, but have to write the actual review based on the rating. So for example, in one of the examples we played with is that this player had to write a 1-star review based on the fairness ethical principle. So in fact, imagining what this product or service would look like if it was in fact unfair. So it's a 1-star negative review for this product or service. Once that is done, the moderator is recommended to grab all the index cards, hand them back out to the team randomly, and then get folks to actually read them out loud, and then start discussing them, thinking about some of the recurring themes, where's the potential areas of harm, and by all means then going a step further to see how some of these issues can be mitigated. That being said, this should lead you and your team on around 60 to 90 minutes of solid discussion around the technology that you're exploring. There you have it, Judgement Call, downloaded the Microsoft website. I've been really excited about the idea of gameplay rather than just being reference cards, and I've been very pleasantly surprised by the outcomes thus far. I would love to know what you think. Do you have any tips or maybe leads on some interesting tools as it relates to artificial intelligence? And then as always, thanks for watching and catch you in the comments.